Hello everybody, this is Manu S and welcome to another Eternal Contenders video. So today I'm going to talk about a sweet brew that I think Buckwheat was the first one to have some success with, Combraxis Moment. It's basically a 3-faction fire justice time mid-range control deck built around Moment of Creation. And batteries, I know, also worked a lot on the deck. They both had different takes on the deck than I have right now, but yeah, they were the two that I know put some work into the archetype before I started working on it. So let's show you where I'm currently at. Alright, so this is the current version. The deck is still basically what it was, a mid-range control deck with a lot of removal, a couple of threats, and Moment of Creation to top it off. I tried other versions of this, like for example with Shadow. Shadow just offers a lot less. The removal in Shadow is worse in the end. Shadow doesn't offer any card draw, Shadow doesn't have a good sweeper, and also no great other threat like Great Parliament, which also happens to be a spell and scales well into the late game. So yeah, Justice just offers a lot more and works better for this type of deck. I also considered Primal, but Primal doesn't offer that many good spells. Like, it offers a lot of card draw, but you get some removal issues and sweeper issues, and also you might want to just go Heart of the Vault, Curiox, no Moment, to not be that dependent on having that many spells. Just like, for example, Batteries did in yesterday's ETS. If you want to check that out, go ahead, check the ETS lists to see what he's up to. Alright, so let's talk about the deck. The deck basically is as many spells as you can reasonably fit, and as few units as necessary, basically, and a bunch of like spell-based units. The removal suit is 4 Theurge, 4 Purify, 4 Vanquish, 2 Entrapment, 2 Runehammer, 4 Harsh Roll, and the Sword of the Sky King. And if you want to count them, the Disjunctions, both because they're removal for attachments and because they can get back relic weapons to reuse them, which also is removal. So this is like pseudo removal. The card draw of the deck basically is Wanted Poster, Disjunction to get back Wanted Poster, Out of the Vault Warping or just the trigger, and Find a Way as like draw 2 power cards basically. Wanted Poster is a really nice addition for the deck, because the deck before didn't have any card draw or any good card draw. All you could play was like Ancient Lore, which is really clunky and suboptimal. So that is a great addition to the deck from the new set. And in terms of threats, we basically have 4 Devoted Theurge, which happen to be a threat and a way to stabilize against aggro and make sure you don't get run over and burned out, because you can gain incremental health back, which is really, really nice, while turning this into more and more of a threat. For Parliament, for Heart of the Vault, for Moment of Creation, and the 1 Sword of the Sky King potentially with like the 2 Disjunctions to get it back. The influence requirements are very hefty in this deck. The deck basically wants 3 Fire, 3 Time, and 2 Justice by turn 5 or 6, which is why there's Find a Way. The other thing is Find a Way is also really nice for Moment of Creation, providing 2 spells, and it's card advantage for a deck like this, because if you always need power drops, then drawing an extra power is almost as good as drawing an extra card, especially if you hope that extra card that you draw is power anyway to hit your power drops. So this is sometimes even better than drawing a card, basically. Another great addition were for Crest of Impulse that help make the deck a lot more consistent, help you hit your power drops as well as prevent you from drawing unnecessary power when you already have like your 8 power or something. So let's talk about the removal suit real quick. The 4 Torch for Purify are basically your bread and butter against aggro. Purify has some tension with Wanted Poster, unfortunately, so make sure that you don't Wanted Poster a unit and then purify it, because then you're not going to draw any cards. That's important. But what you can do sometimes is purify a unit, then wanted poster, and then finish it off with a torch or a hammer if the unit has more than 3 health. I've done that a fair share of times, because sometimes you need to double team a unit to kill it. Then we have for Vanquish, basically the anti-Feddy removal of choice, and also the best answer to the omnipresent dreaded Theurge. And I have 2 more entrapments. They basically serve as Feddy removal 5 and 6, as well as being more flexible and not dead against a threat that has less than 4 attack. This card has become a bit worse due to Fallen Reanimator having a lot of Nightfall, so sometimes you simply cannot entrap their Haunting Scream unit or Rindra because it's night. Before, I'm not 100% sure about the Force Vanquish. It could be a 3rd Entrapment or a 3rd Runehammer. I had that for a bit, but right now I went with 4 Vanquish simply because it's a proactive answer to Theurge. It's much cheaper than the other 2 cards and deals with the real threats, while Entrapment is a bit unreliable, like I said, and Runehammer is can only deal with like minor threats, not major threats. Although having another Runehammer is also really nice for the disjunctions, and Runehammer is just a really powerful card and also a good way to proactively deal with opposing relic weapons, for example, which the deck otherwise can sometimes have some issues with, especially if you have to play like a Theurge into their Runehammer to deal with it. That is really awkward. And you can't always wait till you have Heart of the Vault to shoot down the Runehammer, for example. And yeah, sort of the Sky King is just a removal / finisher to top it off. I theoretically wouldn't mind having a second potentially, although it could be a bit clunky, and the problem right now really is that I don't have room for the second. So 1 + 2 disjunctions to get it back has to do the trick here. And yeah, the threats are just the Theurge and Heart of the Vault as sort of like value threats that just stall the board a bit and or keep the opponent busy, while Moment of Creation and Great Parliament are like the bigger late game threats that start the actual winning and taking over the game from turn 7 or 8 onwards. And the deck fairly reasonably often gets to a point where it makes 3+ owls, especially with the Finder Ways and the amount of card draw that it now has. So Parliament and Moment of Creation are like the late game of the deck basically. And yeah, then we have 4 Seek Power, which both fix our colors and happen to be spells for Moment of Creation, so very convenient. And then we have the power base, just 10 seeds, and for Impulse, for Crests, I found 14 to 15 non-Sigil dual lands in these types of decks to be like the maximum amount you can run, especially with Seek Powers, because otherwise your power base is going to be very slow and clunky. The fact that we have this many seeds and this many sigils definitely helps. Having 11 sigils plus the Seeks on like turn 2 means that our seeds can usually be ready from turn 2 onwards, which turn 2 or 3 onwards, which is pretty good. So the power plays reasonably smooth. Also have to keep in mind, Find a Way is pretty slow and clunky. That makes it even more important to play the amount of sigils and seeds that we have. And once again, for everyone out there, no, this deck cannot reasonably justify playing any Waystones. It's just not worth it. Like, the most extreme thing I could see is like cutting 1 time Sigil for one Waystone, but that's about it. Like, it's just way too greedy. The power base is gonna become super inconsistent and slow. You will have Finder Ways that might not find sigils in the late game sometimes, which actually matters with Devoted Theurge and Great Parliament, for example, and so on. So yeah, just don't be greedy. Be content that we have crests and that we get to run super high requirement 3-faction deck that operates extremely smooth for that fact. So yeah, just don't be greedy. Like, people just put way too many waystones in their decks. I've seen decks with like, I don't know, 12 duels, monuments, and like 6 waystones, and like, I don't know, 5 sigils, and that deck basically is gonna go tap land, tap land, tap land, tap land. It's like, or in eternal terms, depleted power, depleted power, depleted power, depleted power, playing 1 turn behind the entire game. And when you're on the draw, that means you're 2 turns behind, and then you're just dead to like everything. It's absurd. So don't do that. Okay, and yeah, the color requirements are pretty good. We have 8, 11, 15 justice plus the findaways. So 18 and a bit, because the findaways are double. So any findaway we draw means we can harsh rule for sure, for example. And then in fire we have 10, 13, 17 plus the findaway, so 20 and a bit. And in time we even have 10, 15, 19 plus the findaways, 22 and a bunch. Obviously findaway is gonna get time the rarest, which is why the time count is the highest, so we can reliably find a way for the other colors, rather than reducing time to increase the other colors and then sometimes having findaways that we can't play. And yeah, that's it for the deck. The deck has actually shown quite some promise. I really like the current version. The one slot that I'm not 100% sure basically is the Force Vanquish, as I mentioned, for the alternatives. But other than that, I really like this list, and the deck has felt pretty nice and shown quite some promise. It's probably not going to be a tier 1 deck anytime soon, but it could be a pretty solid tier 2 deck, and it's also a pretty cool and fun and interesting deck for anyone out there that's looking for that. So I figured it's time to share it with you guys, for anyone that's looking for a more refined Moment of Creation deck. And so far I think this is the best Moment of Creation deck that's possible, because yeah, like I said, Shadow and Primal just don't really offer enough in comparison. Yeah, that's the deck list. As usual, I'm gonna hop into some games, show it in action to see how it plays out and how it performs. So stay tuned for the first game coming up next.